it's open book, open information. So it's more of a scout, find the information and write it down. Yeah, I'll check up on that. Honestly, I haven't kept up with it
I
yet.
just didn't know because some of them I did from the email and some of them I actually did in the Google
Oh yeah.
document, so I'm not sure.
I'll do an accounting of that this weekend and give you guys an update over the break so that I know because those things are also due at the end, like May 7th, I think I said, just so that I can catch any of that stuff and to make it as easy as possible for everybody. All right.
And there's so many viola jokes and so many things. Like, how do the violas get locked out of his own house? Because he doesn't know where the key is and he doesn't know where to come in.
No, that's the soprano joke.
I thought that was an oboe joke.
Also, there's a funny thing. I actually talk to Dr. Hellman about this all the time, especially like when I took her history class. There's a what's the word? A myth, I guess, that the violas have a curse on them. So anytime that someone wants to write a violist or like a viola concerto or something that has to just feature the viola, they die very soon after.
What?
And there's a bunch of composers that like get that back up. Like Paganini, for example, he wrote only one viola concerto, and right after it was performed for the first time, he died like a few weeks later. And there's just a ton of composers that write these viola solos and then die after. So a whole bunch of people that she went to school with in Indiana kept saying that, like composer friends say that when they know they're on their deathbed, they're just going to write the viola solo so they can when they pass away. But it's super weird, and we talked about it, or like I said, we sat down and talked about it, and there was actually a lot of people that have written viola solos on sonatas and concertos and never moved back very soon after. So if you ever get into composing, don't write a viola something.
Actually, that's on my list here today. Don't write a viola solo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or you'll die.
Yeah.
Good thing I'm probably not going to be a composer.
Good warning. I'll give this a couple more minutes and then we can start.
Oh, Dr. Anderson, did you bring that empty bottle of Windex today?
I didn't, but I'll get it.
Oh.
Before rehearsal, yeah.
Cool.
The only thing is, I don't know if am I going to really have time to get out there and do anything before it passes by and nobody knows what I'm doing.
I think since there's no accompaniment in that paper, I think we can kind of take some time.
Well, we can practice it. I'll have it.
Cool.
I thought about all my equipment today.
course, you are all sober. That is an exciting thing. I know, and that saves a lot of money.
It saves time.
Well,
All right, I think we'll just start this last. Do you believe
I've been looking all over for the bigger one, he said, in the fridge at the store. Somebody threw it away at the store, or I can find the one. Yeah, I used to have a great big one, two that size, and three of the small ones.
You had a bigger one than that?
Yeah,
Oh, I've never even seen that one.
and it was in the fridge at the store. I can't find the other one that size or the great big one. Or I can't find any.
I might have the other one that size, because I have it in my backpack. But
fellow lecturer?
I'm losing my mind.
Anyway, I'm going to cover.
Can't find any anywhere. I'm gonna leave a small one.
Your inquisitiveness about
I don't know what's happening.
stuff that you would like to have.
Are you doing something fancy today?
yeah, I have to perform my solo,
Uh,
and then I have a recording session later.
Ooh.
Then tomorrow I have a concert, so I'm not gonna be dressed up all day for that because all this stuff happens in the day after training.
Yeah.
And then Saturday we have graduation, so I just have to look nice for the next 3 days. Thank you. See you later.
Handled to the end here. Let's start with a few more things about literature and how to select literature, and a wide variety of literature, and rather than say, step-by-step process, here's some advice that sometimes is really obvious and sometimes it's not. But if you're given a new position anywhere, first thing you do is you look through your library and you assess what is in it and what isn't in it, and what's usable and what you think. Every library that you inherit is going to have a whole bunch of stuff that you'd never use again, and every library that you inherit is going to have some stuff they just performed, and so that's step number one. How do you find literature? You attend festivals, you listen to other groups, you ask your mentors and friends. You keep lifelines with people that you have encountered, whether they be former professors like me or other music educators that have been doing this for a while. And you say, hey, I've got this kind of a group. You have a gym that is great for sophomore girls, and it's going to be a Valentine's concert, or something like that. So especially as you start out, your peers and other experienced people are incredible. I still ask my colleagues and friends around the country, hey, what did you guys program last year? Just if I'd like to find out some new titles and new literature, or just things that I haven't done. You go to reading sessions. This all sounds like no-brainer stuff, but you go to Idaho All-State Conference, and every single one of those places has printed music, online music, and almost all of them in every state, whether it's American Choral Directors Association, ACDA, or NAFMA, they have reading sessions where you go in, you get a packet of music like this, or like that workbook that I gave you, and all you do is you sit through and somebody conducts you through all these pieces, and then you kind of get through as much in that packet as you can during that 1 hour session. There's nothing better than perusing hot off the presses music that way, because a lot of times the publisher is doing this for nothing. You get all of the music and you take it home with you because they want you to buy it. And so it's real cost effective for them because they get it all back anyway. When you go to a convention or a conference, or somebody performs at a series in town, or they just are on tour, get the printed program. Collect the printed program so that you have a reference of that literature. Lots of programs, all programs at conventions and conferences, I mean even local ones, like if you go to Boise, All of the programs that the performing groups do have the publisher information on there. That's part of what you do. And you can get it. Peruse clearinghouse websites, like the one that I showed you on J.W. Pepper and sheetmusicplus.com are the two biggest clearinghouses in the world for choral music anyway. And now, every year, every few months, there are more and more and more of every piece has either a score that you could peruse, or a video you can watch, or both. I sent out a tutorial program or not program, but video for the concert choir who's working on Cloudburst. And that publisher had the score turning as the entire piece was performed by a top-level choir. So you get not only the sound, but you get the score. And in another couple of years, that's just going to be, everything will be that way. And what they do is they get groups together and, pick up pros, and they record. They have these recording sessions where they just read through all this music and they put them on. And then they take some live performances. Find out about ethnic music and other music through earthsongs.com. And I'm going to send this to you anyway, so you don't even have to write it down. Earth Songs is a clearinghouse publishing that has music from all over the world. That's their function. These kinds of countries in Africa, Southeastern Asian music, Filipino music, music from Peru, folk styles that are arranged into choral styles that are in the indigenous languages. They have resources on that site, like you can get an audio file for pronunciation. You can get an audio file for background about the piece. Sometimes the composer or the arranger is on that audio file helping to make it clear. So sources like that. Musica Rusica. Once you get the website, you don't ever have to say it again. But it's Russian choral music. And same thing. You can go through every kind of Russian choral music, 2-part, 3-part, women's, men's, big choirs, romantic, baroque, 20th century, 21st century, and all of those things are on that website with scores that you can peruse. And in some cases, they're a little bit behind this because this is literally a Russian music website. And that's not such a big deal if you're not used to singing in choirs right now, but it will be in your career if you just because of the multiculturalism. We haven't talked much about it because there hasn't been as much time as I would have liked, but vocal jazz is a real issue in the Pacific Northwest. And when I went and had my teaching job at Pullman, Washington, I had never done a vocal jazz ensemble before. I did a vocal jazz ensemble once I got to Pullman, because that was so ensconced in their tradition that, Lionel Hampton Festival is right across the border in Moscow, and they did it every year, and there were 2 groups. There was a women's jazz group and a mixed jazz group, one on a mic, soundboard, rhythm section, the whole bit. And I was so fortunate that I had, number one, the former director in the town, who was so unobtrusive and just kept hands off. But anytime I wanted to know something, he was right there to help me. I brought in Frank DeMiro, who is a really well-known vocal jazz artist on the Washington coast. He clinicked the choir. I learned a lot. I had a senior bass player and a senior pianist. What a lucky guy, because they were jazz geeks. And I learned so much on the job from them, to the point where by the time I left, my assistantship at UMKC in Kansas City was their vocal jazz ensemble. And so, I had to hit the ground running, and then I went to the next level because I was learning from them too. But the point is that there is one source of lit that is just inexhaustible, and that is the UNC Jazz Press. UNC is the University of Northern Colorado, and it is a jazz mecca in terms of their own program there. But they also have, if you look this up online, they have the same kind of thing that sheetmusicplus.com does, but it's vocal jazz charts, and they're graded. Level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is almost professional. And so what you get when you purchase a tune and you find an arranger that you like, Steve Bardoon, Greg Yazininski, so-and-so, whoever it is, that you learn some of these names that are out there, Dave Bardoon and others that are still doing this stuff. You order it and you get a packet like this. And jazz charts are, quite a bit different than the typical. What you get are a packet of about 16 of these, which are piano vocal scores with, looks like Baroque figured bass. it's the chording, it's the chord progressions for the jazz pianist. And you get a bass line so that the bass player has their own part, and you get a drum part that's really just a guide. And so basically what you get is the rhythm section parts and the vocal parts, and then the pianist plays off the chord chart. So that's kind of interesting, just thumbing through this and, I didn't know it came that way. And then when you look through it, you go, wow, that's different, because of how little or how much there are in all of these parts. So what you immediately find out is, I need some help if you haven't done this before. I had to figure out how to work with the rhythm section, with the drummer, various styles, Latin, swing, every kind of style you can imagine. The pianist, who I didn't read chord charts. I had to have the music printed out. So anyway, that's something that is going to change around this school here at Idaho State, only because we've got Professor Armstrong here, and we're moving toward having a little bit more eclectic situation, so that people who come in for the choral experience also have a little bit more of don't have to go through what I went through, and that is zero experience to having a competitive group at the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival. I mean, eventually that group and I went to the Vancouver Jazz Festival, Mount Hood Jazz Festival, all over the Northwest. And for those of us that live kind of in this pocket, unless you're in Boise and northwest of Boise, jazz is kind of out there and you think about it. But you think about it occasionally, but for them, for those programs, that's all some of those schools think about, is competitive vocal jazz. So I'm not advocating that either, because I taught concert choir and men's and women's choirs as well. But that actually is a great part of the program. I'll tell you what, people that learn to read this stuff are the best sight readers I've ever known. Really, they can read anything. So it's actually great for the program. I just wanted to at least give you, and I'll send around the website for this too, so that you might want to peruse that in the future. But that then brings up a whole bunch of stuff, right? It brings up, when I was doing this a long time ago, the equipment was heavy, ponderous, and just, mic stands were bulky and not kind of the light stuff that we're using around here now. So I would love to have a group now, but I mean, the soundboard weighed 500 pounds. That's what it seemed like. It was in a big, like a steel locker box, and we hauled that all over when we went on the road. Wires and cords coming out of everywhere. I mean, part of the time we spent, okay, this is how you wrap a mic cord. This is how you don't treat a microphone. We had Shure mics, 16 of them, and a couple of extra ones. But you can imagine the expense, even then, of equipment that I'm describing. It's not like a couple of little area mics. Every singer was on a mic. And then the equipment, the amps, the soundboard, blah, blah, blah. So that's a whole class in and of itself. But you at least need to know about it. I already said ask peers and mentors with experience for a suggestion. Listen and watch YouTube performances and other resources. You don't know how much time I spend doing that. Because today, international choirs and our national, the top groups are on YouTube and other sources immediately. So like they'll get a new piece and it's on there. Whether it's legal or not, somebody has put it on there. And so I watch Voces 8 all the time to get new literature ideas. And they're a cutting edge group that's out there right now singing a cappella and other music that is top of the line. And, I can't get it from a composer before they can get it out on YouTube. I mean, literally, I know a couple of the composers that they have recorded who have just written it like a month before, and they're the first group that gets it because they are who they are. So YouTube, don't poo-poo that. I'm sure you don't, but it really has some of the top level performances on it. Get to know composer names and their grade level specialties. So that group of names that I was covering in our last video session, the Dan Davison, Rolla Dilworth, Jacob Navarrete, Audrey Snyder, Roger Emerson, Andrea Ramsey, those are the names that anybody that teaches in middle school has to know, because they aren't just writing stuff to sell, they also teach. They teach middle school, and some of them are associated, like Boyer College of Music is Rollo Dilworth in Philadelphia. Well, but that's what he does part-time. And then the other time that he runs an outstanding middle school choir program. So they're the real deal. And they take into account all of the ranges, can be out of voice, changing voices, girls, boys, mixed groups, every kind of singer. So costumes, you have to decide robes, tuxes, vests, what kind of shirt, what kind of dresses. Is it going to be an individual look? Is it not going to be an individual look? Is it going to be uniform? And how much is that going to cost? Does your school already own robes? Do they already own costumes that are rented out to the students? Those are questions you need to ask, because you could be teaching somewhere for 2 years and realize you have a cupboard full of tuxedos or a cupboard full of, whatever. So that's something to know. Volunteer to be a host. Volunteer to host something at your school when you become a new director and, you're in a new position. Serve, just volunteer to serve. It's like anything you do. When I was working on a job, and I don't mean in music, but just like a summer job back when I'm revealing that I worked at a beer warehouse for a couple of summers, but I learned the step by step. What do I do by work starting at the bottom? I did the menial jobs. Well, when you get a job, just you let your facility, particularly if you have a decent facility, let your facility help bring people into you. So you get to know people. They come in for meetings. Oh, I'll host the IMEA district meeting. Come to my school. Or volunteer to be a site chair for something. I've been a coordinator for especially ACDA in the state for a lot of years, and one of the biggest difficulties is getting somebody to volunteer to be a site chair for a festival. But if a new teacher does that, right away they get plugged into that whole leadership group that runs the state. Yeah?
What's a site chair?
Site chair is like if the festival were held here, I would be the site chair for ISU. I wouldn't do anything other than make sure that my facility was open, that there were chairs available, that I would work with the organizers of the event, meaning I'm helping. They're using my space, and I just make sure that everything's organized. And, oh, you need chairs? I'll go get 50 more. Oh, you need risers? We've got to set up in the pack, and we've got to set down here. That kind of thing. You don't have really a leadership position, but you're kind of in the background being a gopher. kind of a thing, which is, I guess, why a lot of people don't want to do it.
I assume you need to talk to like the head of the department or whatever for approval.
Oh, yeah. But usually your department chair within reason or principal, because that's a lot of places you're not going to have a department chair. You're just going to be the music department or half of it. Yeah, you would talk to your colleague, the band director, or the band orchestra director, or the band and orchestra director, so that and a lot of times if your colleagues in that department are into it, they might be the site location for all three. I mean, and all state is kind of an extreme situation, but I mean things like district festival, because typically those things are run solo and ensemble, that kind of thing. You could use this room for the sopranos. You could use that room for the alt, you know what I mean, for solo singing and adjudication. And I mean, yeah, there's a whole lot of ramifications about communication, of course. Take your group to sing for elementary schools, for middle schools, for high schools, for whatever level they aren't. And either direction, it helps. If you're an upper elementary school director, and when I taught high school, I hosted a couple of 6th grade choirs, and it was really cool. It was really a neat collaboration. Now, it doesn't mean that every director will want to have that kind of a collaboration, because, of course, there are obvious reasons that I would like to have my high school choir sing at a junior high, because I'm recruiting them, right? I would like them to come to hear my choir and say, okay, now you guys can come do this when you're out of North Junior High or whatever it is. You come to the high school. But there's also kind of a civic art education, I think, cool modeling situation that can occur the other way. If the grade school kids or the middle school kids get to come up to the next level or the next 2 levels, because then there's a mentorship that goes the other way too. So anyway, joint concerts are incredible. So hey, you over there in Blackfoot High School, would you let's have me host a concert here at out at Ryrie, and you bring your choir out, and then next time maybe we can come over to your place. So things that are kind of cheap in terms of you're only maybe 20 miles apart at the most or something, in town, out of town, just barely, things that are fairly inexpensive. You're not going to Portland for an exchange, then maybe that's possible. Here's some stuff that I suggest. Get to know coaches. When you are the new person on the block, coaches have they sort of run some things that other teachers don't. And that is obviously the athletic systems and how many people are involved. Number one, you're going to run up against their practices all the time with your activities. And you're going to be sharing students, and the relationships that you're able to build with those coaches will assist in mitigating those things. So if it's adversarial from the beginning, the music person's going to lose. I can tell you that. Now with the associations now that are in various states, Idaho High School Association also, there are rights that all of these groups have. I mean, it's not like everybody's thrown in and they all fight each other. But because now if there's a festival sanctioned by the state, the athletes have to be released from a practice or something without penalty to participate in that. So that's great. But I'm talking about working in-house. I'm talking about one little story that we did Oklahoma when I was the high school director at Pullman. And I had the track coach playing trumpet in my orchestra. And I had one of the assistant basketball coaches playing percussion. So it was that, and I found out about it, and I asked them, and they, hey, yeah, I'd like to do that. So they kind of came into that situation. We all had a ball, and I just started to build a rapport with some people who respected what we did in music, and then were willing to give a little. Oh yeah, Scott, I know him. He's a pretty good guy. And the other thing is that I volunteered to have the choir sing at football games. So it's not just pep band that deals with this stuff. Not choirs aren't a regular. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, hey, choirs are in this all. No, but there are assemblies. There are, pep assemblies. There are games themselves. There are other sort of athletic banquet events and things that music can be a part of if you make those relationships and kind of promote, the choirs as being available for them. And that is better than, sorry, Kira, there's not an extra chair. Theater faculty, get to know them. Custodians are your best friend. Anita Bonzo runs this place. I mean, really. And if I'm at odds with those people, with the custodians, things don't happen. Equipment ends up places that you don't want it to. But I have a wonderful relationship with Anita and a friendship over the years that we do favors for each other, and I try to do favors for her. I try to make sure, okay, I want to have those chairs against the wall at the end of the day so she can clean it at the end of the day. Sometimes I forget, and then I have to apologize. But it's just keeping that relationship really front and center, because when you need that help, it's a godsend to have somebody say, well, we can make this work, we can bring all that equipment up, and that's the way Anita is now. I don't have to like cringe every time there's some sort of facility use. Of course, administrators, right? Administrators are the lifeline to getting what you think your program needs to do, whether it be as simple as the things we've already talked about, maybe doing a festival, just being a part of the school, just being acknowledged as a viable part of, PHS or whatever the high school initials are. That part of the thing that principal is thinking about is, we've got good music staff here. We have a good program. It's solid, and the teachers are really, really good folks. Other faculty, incredibly important. And I don't mean just your other music faculty, but the other faculty, the other teachers in the school. That happens over time. Need to know your supply sources. We talked a little bit about this. Those online music sources, of course. But the supplies, where do you get tables like this? Where do you get those Wenger chairs? You get them from Wenger. Where do you get those risers? Where do you get those shelves? How much money are these? That on sale, those Wenger black, those are the cheap ones too, by the way. The more expensive ones are the padded ones that the orchestra sits in. Those are $88 in bulk a piece. So if you buy 100 of those chairs, you're paying $8,800 plus tax. And that's the discount price. Because I think they're listed at 100 or 110. So I just checked those prices yesterday. But then you have to buy a rack. The racks don't come with them. But anyway, these kinds of folder holders, if you want to store music, which is important because the music is expensive. Folders. Where do you get folders? Well, you get them from musicfolder.com. That's one source. And I'll send you that. But those are $25 a piece. So where do I often get them? Kmart, Walmart, Book Supply through Liz. She can order them for $2 something a piece. And they're not the fancy ones like from the Folder Company, which have that, leather strap and you hold it, it opens. We do that in Camerata Singers because those adults have their own funding sources. And you want that, you wanna buy that $25, $35 folder, great, let's do that. But do the math on that, 25 or 30 bucks times 100. That's a lot of money. I'm laughing because I was thinking about the budgets that sometimes you have or don't have when that. So musicfolder.com, Swingline Paper Punch and Staple Company. Swingline is a good one because it's the main. If you want a paper punch, you want a paper punch. You want a paper punch that can go through this. You don't want a paper punch that can go through this, the little ones that you get at home. Because you think you run off to the store and you grab a little paper punch and you're gonna do that with stacks of music. That's gonna take you about 18 years to do one stack of music. So you get one that's like heavy, boom, the big handle on the side, and it will punch through, 15, 16 pages at once. I'm joking with you, but it's really true. It's little things like this that become big things when you don't have it. Because if you don't want your students to lose their music, punch it and put it in the folders. If you want them to lose their music, just have them stick it with the music, separate music in the folder slots. Every day you'll have, I don't have Yellow Submarine. I whatever. Somebody will come up with it. We already have that, don't we, people? To some degree. Etsy.com music stamps. We ever heard of that website? Etsy.com. They make specialty stamps. You can order them. Scott's Special Music Library. And that I can have that put on there, but I don't. Ink pads, pens, pencils. Okay, fundraising. What kind? How long? How many per year? Administration backing, parental backing, and participation. So, fundraising. How do you think you're going to do all this stuff? How do you think you're going to go to even a festival that's up at Blackfoot? Well, you're going to requisition a school bus, and that paperwork has to happen about 3 weeks ahead of time. And then you have to have the time that you're leaving, you have to have the time that you're there, and you have to have the time that you're departing so that those bus drivers have a bus there. And that comes out of your budget. It comes out of the choir or band or music budget. And so let's say it costs $150. Do I have $150? Well, if you do, then that's good news. You can also, there's where the relationship with your principal comes in. We have the festival coming up. Is there some extra travel money that maybe, so you exhaust all those sources. Any kind of a tour, the school will not pay for. Costumes, the school will not pay for. Parents might pay for them, but you're going to have to do that. So what kind of fundraising do you want to do? Probably fundraising where music's involved, where you sing for your supper, or you do a service with music. These are recommendations from me. You can sell candles if you want to. You can sell chocolates, and a lot of places do. I always had, unless it was one big sale that really made it for the year, I think I mentioned to you before, Texas grapefruit and Florida oranges. We would buy them by the box, and we would make, maybe $10 per box of these things. So if you sell a few hundred of those, you're in the thousands of dollars that you're making money on in one project. So one year we made $12,000 from selling citrus fruit. I can do that once, but I don't want to sell somebody else's product for my music students. That's what, when you talk about the little stuff, pizza kits, candles, what are some other, there have been so many seashell pendants, whatever, Christmas candles and little snow bunnies and things like that. It was easier to sing for a banquet, send the group out and get $150, and then that would be put into the pot, and or something like that. Tours. Administration, school district, those things don't happen as much as they used to because of legal concerns and litigation. Chaperones are definitely going to be involved if you go anywhere, you know that. So those are, where do you get those? Parents. Parents have their kids in your group. So I had some great parents that would stay up all night in the hallways. Not because I wanted them to, because they wanted to. They wanted to make sure that those kids were behaving and so on and so forth. I said, fine. Yeah, I'm going to bed. But I mean, if you get some really great parents and cultivate that by inviting them to come in to, first of all, just see and hear what you're doing to the concerts, but then also to maybe a parent meeting, a band booster, a choir booster, a orchestra booster meeting with parents and say, here are some of the goals that we have this year. We would love to have your help. And rather than just asking for this, you can ask for time, for bodies, for organization, we're doing a spaghetti feed dinner fundraiser, and the choirs are singing and performing. Would you mind serving for us? Could you, and once you ask, the heavens will open. Well, I would love to, you'll get some people that would just like almost take over. Then you'll have other problems, but you can deal with that. So you do buses, and that's where the fundraising comes in, and then you will definitely never do homestays again in this world. What I mean is the litigation issues. When I was a kid, we did homestays with people, and that probably will never happen. You would do hotels with chaperones, motels with chaperones, if that would even happen. So tours are usually now connected with one of 3 or 4 things: a festival, literally a tour where you put together stopping and maybe sharing concerts at different high schools, or being maybe one high school director in another town will host you at a church, a neutral church site, for an evening concert, and both groups will sing there. And those joint concerts then bring people into your concert who wouldn't come. You have to have a joint concert on a tour in order to have anybody show up, especially on the public school level. It's not the Concordia Choir is here, I'm just trying to get people to show up and enjoy this. So in organizing tours, as you might imagine, you, the director, will have to have lists of crews, packing, loading, unloading. That will have to rotate with every stop. There's a luggage crew, there's a riser crew if you carry your own risers, there's a setup crew. There might be a manager that goes in with you, or a couple of people that go, your bus arrives at a school, you pull up in front of the school, 3 of us get out, the rest of the people stay in the bus. We go scout out the facility, okay, what time do we have to be set up? That crew that's with me organizes all of those things, and they tell those people where to go. They take this here, they take that there, because they've already been into the building with me. We might have a half hour to set up sometimes, and then we sing. So what I mean is that every one of these locations is different. Sometimes you have a couple of hours to do it, and sometimes you have 30 minutes or 20 minutes, or you're late, like I've been before, and we forget about all that stuff. We throw on our choir shirts, and we go out and we perform because we didn't have time to change. And we make it happen like it's supposed to happen like that. So do you have a portable keyboard? Do you have a power source? Do you have, blah, 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 blah. Where are the percussion instruments? Who's on first? So the organization of these things is, you become an impresario, basically. You, the teacher. Where are the restrooms? It's going to be your best, blah, blah. Okay, so retreats are the same way. Do you do a retreat in the fall? Do you do a retreat in the spring? Do you do one a year? Do you try to do something in the summer? Retreats are incredibly great group building events that kind of get everybody on the same page with mundane things like, just how do we rehearse in choir? When you come to this school, how do we do things? What are the director's expectations? What are the rest of the students' expectations? What does choir mean to those students who have a history in your program? Those people learn that, the new people learn that when they come to a retreat. As the Borg did, you assimilate them. And, but seriously, it allows a situation that is not structured by school time, the bells, and 50 minutes to just, okay, it's over, bye. You have maybe a weekend or you have a full day of activities where you can take the time. There can be social activities, there can be getting to know you because people who know each other, like each other, and enjoy spending time together, in my opinion, make better music together. There's a level of vulnerability that occurs that's really important. Musicals. The theater department person, if there is one, could be a great help. Oftentimes, you're going to be it. You're going to be the director, the drama director, the rehearser, the stage person, the organizer of the staging, and you might be the musical director too. The best situation is a large enough school where you can concentrate on the musical side of things, and you can get somebody who, like the theater person, to be a co-producer with you. The other thing is that there are often some people in a community who have a great and a tremendous deal of experience in theater, and they might be interested in coming in and co-directing or something like that. Well, I've taken all the time, haven't I? I'm sorry. So you have to choose a show. You have to, let's say it's Rodgers and Hammerstein. There is a great website that you peruse and you go and you find out, what does it cost me to rent this? What are the rights? What do the rights cost me? Because these musicals that are mainline, you pay rental fees based on the size of your hall. Oh, we average about 200 people that come every night. Oh, then your fees are bigger. You pay for a certain type of orchestration, if it's a large orchestration, if it's a band, or if it's smaller, like one instrument. They have a variety of orchestrations for some of these things, and each one of them is a different price to rent them. Once you secure that from the lending library, from the Rodgers and Hammerstein lending library, it comes in like this in various packets, and you have the flute part and violin 1 and 2 and so on and so forth, and then you figure out, let's see, we don't have a violin 2, so I guess Tommy will play the jug, and then you buy the orchestration or you rent the orchestration that's most appropriate. So all of that stuff, I don't know that you think of. I have to pay a rental fee, yeah, and that's where your ticket prices come from. So the bottom line is you add up, what are all the fees that we have to pay over the run of the show? And then your ticket prices start there. So, because you want to be able to emerge with a little bit of extra, so you add a little bit of extra, and you still make it reasonable enough for people to arrive. You need rehearsal pianists, facilities for rehearsal. You need lighting and sound and technical effects. Costumes, are they rented? Are they made? Are they borrowed? Are they minimalist? Or are they going to be all these combinations? Number of performances, how many will it be? How many can you do? What's the cost effectiveness of, gee, I'm going to wrap up my kids' time for 4 weeks and then we're only going to have one performance. Really? So what's the deal and how much do you want? So all of what I did took so much time, and I'm sorry. I really did intend to make a question and answer. But I also, as I was thinking through all this, I thought, you've got to at least hear about this. And if that creates other questions for you, please send them to me. Send me a question. If you didn't get an answer, or we didn't cover something today that you're going, I left this class and I still don't have the answer to this. And by the way, there are lots of questions that you don't have the answer to. I acknowledge that. Finally, how all of this will work is you're going to be receiving a bunch of things from me over the next weekend, probably. One will be the take-home final, and that's the way that will will run, and it will be, you use your resources to find the answers to those questions. And I'm not gonna have you running around like an Easter egg hunt for things that we've never touched on. Some of it's going to be just a recapitulation of what we've already discussed in class. Some of it's gonna be, what does this author say, meaning the person in your textbook, that we haven't covered in class, so that you have an idea of what that person says. What does that person say in chapter such and such? And answer that question. You will be receiving, I think I said 5 scanned articles from the Journal of ACDA. You choose one of them, and there will be an opportunity for you to answer some questions on that final. So that's where that article is going to come in. It's not some extra thing that you have another form for. That's just part of the final exam. And then if you'll complete those, if you haven't, some of you are way ahead and have submitted bunches of your choral music analysis sheets. And what's the other one?
The rehearsal.
Thank you, rehearsal observation from the videos. Those are the only paperwork. There's not additional ones, but the other things that you'll be being sent are resources. So websites that contain UNC Jazz Press, or other things that I've made Gamble Music, or other things I've made reference to, just a sheet of, or a page of these kinds of resources, websites, under headings. Music supply companies, blah, blah, blah. Tour companies, blah, blah, blah. Because we didn't even talk about the occasional, once-in-a-lifetime international tour that some schools do take. Or we didn't talk about the Disney Festival in Anaheim. We didn't talk about, those kind of things. So finally, my final comment is I appreciate your patience this semester with both the COVID situation and my own issues, because there have been a couple in recent weeks. Most recently, dealing with my sister's passing, and so missing a few classes in that way. I'm sorry about that, especially under the circumstances where this course was kind of a nightmare for me to try to present to you in any sort of way, one that has been in the past so practically based, where the people have used each other in the class to teach. It became evident early on that doing one event or doing one assignment with 16 people was going to take 2.5 class periods. And so it moved from the practical to the egghead lectures and content only, and I regret that. That's not the way I like to teach this class. But I do hope that with kind of giving you a bunch of information, at least a couple of models, that information will be useful for you. Unbelievably, I didn't even have a choral methods class when I was an undergraduate. We did the conducting classes, methods classes in other instrumental areas, but we did not have choral methods, and I took education classes. So it is possible to survive without choral music methods, but it is better to at least have some of the knowledge. And so if you have any questions along the way about, okay, now tell me again what is going on here, send me an email. If you have a specific question about pedagogy, or about sources, or about how do I do this, what do you recommend for that, where do I find this or that, send me an email. And guess what? I'm going to be here for a few more years, so you can keep sending me those emails. If you are out in the field and you go, hey, I'm doing this musical, what do I do? I'd be really happy, and I have communicated with people all over the state over the years that have been our alums. So don't be afraid about that. Okay? Thank you. Oh, would you start a pile up here? And if you have your Roger Emerson Shoshone love song and any Xeroxes with you, I would appreciate you just leaving it right up here on the table. Like, all of the music that we passed out, that we're using or didn't use.
How do you want to return the book for the,
The ACDA sight singing.
Oh, those are yours.
oh,
Yeah, you keep the sight reading books. The only thing I need back are the music. And actually, you can keep the America, but I'll recycle that.
I'm gonna go grab mine out of my cubby.
Okay. That's cool.
it's nice to have somebody there to keep you honest. Dr. Anderson.
So much for a question and answer session, huh?